Buying a boat should mean unforgettable days on the water, not endless repair bills. Yet some models hide serious flaws behind their polished appearance, from unreliable engines to hulls that deteriorate long before they should. In this countdown of the 17 worst boats to avoid, you'll discover the costly mistakes that have left countless owners stranded, frustrated, and spending more time at the repair shop than on the water. Number 17. The Bayliner Capri. Starting us off at number 17 is one of the most common boats on American water, the Bayliner Capri. On the surface, it's appealing, affordable, widely available, often selling used for just a few $1,000s. That low price is exactly the trap. The Capri holds the unfortunate record as the single Bayliner model with the most documented complaints filed with the U.S. Coast Guard. We're talking over 1,000 units flagged for fuel filler pipes that weren't properly grounded, hundreds more cited for inadequate ventilation in the engine compartment, and several hundred that simply couldn't float level due to stability problems. Add in the untreated plywood hidden under the seat cushions and below the floor, and you've got a boat engineered down to a price point rather than up to a standard. The Capri isn't dangerous in calm water, but the moment conditions turn, owners describe a boat that wanders, pounds, and feels flimsy underfoot. For a first-time buyer chasing the cheapest fiberglass on the lot, this one is a costly education. But the next example changes everything. Number 16. The Renken Runabout. At number 16, we have the Renken. It is a name many first-time buyers have never heard of, and that is part of what makes these boats so tempting on the used market. They often sell for surprisingly low prices, making them look like incredible bargains compared to better-known brands. But there is a reason they are so inexpensive. Renken built boats to hit aggressive price points, and one of the biggest compromises was overall quality, particularly when it came to the powertrain and long-term durability. Owners have reported replacing the entire engine not just once, but sometimes 2 or even 3 times during the life of the boat. That is an astonishing expense for any vessel, and it has earned Renken a reputation for turning what looks like a bargain into a constant repair project. The early hulls were also designed primarily for calm inland lakes and protected waters. While they can perform adequately in smooth conditions, many owners found they simply were not built to withstand repeated pounding in rough coastal water or heavy chop. Add to that the fact that Renken has been out of business for years, making replacement parts, factory support, and specialized components increasingly difficult to find, and ownership becomes even more challenging. You are essentially buying an orphaned boat with limited support and growing maintenance headaches. Even if the purchase price seems impossible to pass up, the long-term costs can quickly erase any savings, making this one of those boats that is cheap to buy but expensive to own. What comes next might surprise you. Number 15. The Luhrs Sport Fisherman. Taking the 15th spot is the Luhrs Sport Fisherman. On paper, a real fishing boat with offshore ambitions. In reality, a cautionary tale. Luhrs shut its doors back in 2008, attempted a short-lived comeback around 2012, and failed again. That history matters more than any spec sheet, because when you buy a Luhrs today, you are buying into a company that no longer exists. There is no technical support, no service network, and replacement parts have become a scavenger hunt. Owners routinely cannibalize other dead boats just to keep theirs running. On top of that, build quality across the production years was inconsistent, so what you actually get depends almost entirely on how the previous owner treated it. A well-kept Luhrs can fish. A neglected one becomes a fiberglass anchor you can't even give away. For a boat this dependent on luck, the risk simply isn't worth it. But compared to what comes next, that was just the beginning. Number 14. The Kingfisher Aluminum. Number 14 is the Kingfisher. With roughly 30 models floating around from Alaska down to Florida, these aluminum boats are everywhere, and that ubiquity hides a few real headaches. The first is noise. Because Kingfisher builds with welded aluminum instead of fiberglass, owners consistently describe these boats as punishingly loud underway, the hull amplifying every wave slap and engine vibration into the cabin. The second is a pattern of complaints around handling and overall build quality, with reports of issues in the engines, hull integrity, and electrical systems. Aluminum has genuine advantages. It is light and it will not develop fiberglass blisters, but a poorly finished aluminum boat trades one set of problems for another. If you value a quiet, composed ride, the Kingfisher will wear you down trip after trip. Now things start to get interesting. Number 13. The Maxum 2400 SCR. Coming in at number 13 is the Maxum, specifically the mid-size cruisers like the 2400 SCR. Maxum was Brunswick's middle child, a notch above Bayliner, a clear step below Sea Ray, and it inherited the worst of that positioning. Boaters are blunt about it. In the resale market, a Maxum is treated as barely a rung above the bottom, which means you'll pay to repair it but recover almost nothing when you sell. The bigger concern is construction. Like its budget siblings from that era, many Maxums used wood in the stringers and transom, and once water finds that wood, the structural backbone of the boat begins to rot from the inside. By the time you feel a spongy floor or see cracks at the transom edges, you're often looking at a repair that costs more than the boat is worth. A Maxum that's been garaged and babied can serve you. One that's been left in the rain is a project boat in disguise. But the next entry takes a sharper turn. Number 12, the Bayliner with the Force outboard. At number 12, we are back to Bayliner, but for a very specific and very important reason, the Force outboard motor. Boaters did not nickname this engine the Black Anchor as a joke. When Brunswick acquired Chrysler's outboard division, those motors ended up bolted to a generation of Bayliners, and they earned a reputation for being underpowered, hard-starting, and quick to fail. Here is the trap for a used buyer today. A Bayliner hull from this era might be perfectly serviceable, but if it is still wearing its original Force outboard, you are inheriting the single most disliked motor of its time. Repowering with a modern Mercury or Mercruiser can easily cost more than you paid for the entire boat. The lesson experienced boaters repeat over and over: it is not always the hull that sinks the deal, it is what is hanging off the back of it. But the next example is the one people usually remember. Number 11. The OMC Cobra equipped runabouts. Sitting at number 11 is any boat from the late 1980s and early 1990s still running the OMC Cobra stern drive. The hull brand varies. You'll find these on Bayliners, on Capris, on a dozen others, but the Cobra drive is the common thread of misery. Owners who had otherwise trouble-free boats single out this exact drive system as the source of their problems. Failures, leaks, and parts that became harder and harder to source after OMC collapsed. A stern drive sits half in the water, and when its seals fail, water creeps into the lower unit oil and turns it a telltale milky color, a sign of an expensive repair already underway. Before we get to the top 10, here's a tip that applies to every boat on this list. Before you ever buy, pull the lower unit oil and check it. If it is milky, walk away. That one habit can save you thousands. If you thought that was notable, wait for this one. Number 10. The older Ray Sundancer. Breaking into the top 10 at number 10 is a name that surprises people. The older Ray Sundancer. Ray is a respected brand, and that's exactly why this one is dangerous. The badge lulls buyers into skipping their homework. The catch is that Ray has a documented history of recalls for serious issues, including electrical faults and safety concerns. And on the older cruisers, those electrical gremlins surface right where you don't want them, in the bilge, near the fuel system, in a sealed engine box. A premium hull doesn't protect you from a wiring fire. On top of that, these are big, complex boats with twin engines, generators, and elaborate plumbing. Every one of those systems is another thing that can fail and another bill when it does. A clean, surveyed Sundancer can be a wonderful boat. An old one bought on its reputation alone is a 5-figure gamble, and this is where things start escalating quickly. Number 9. The Wellcraft Older Cruisers. At number 9, we have the older Wellcraft cruisers. Wellcraft built fast, good-looking boats, and there are loyal fans who swear by them, but the older models carry the same disease that haunts so much of this list: water intrusion into wood. Soft transoms, rotting stringers, and saturated foam coring show up again and again on aging Wellcrafts. Here's why that foam issue is so insidious. When a boat's flotation foam soaks up water, it doesn't just add weight, it changes how the boat sits. One of the dead giveaways surveyors look for is a boat whose drain scuppers sit right at the waterline instead of above it, even when the boat is empty. That means the hull is carrying hundreds of pounds of trapped water it was never designed to hold. You can't see it from the dock, and that's exactly what makes it so expensive when you finally find it. And now we are getting into the real heavy hitters. Number 8. The Nitro Bass Boat. In the 8th spot is the older Nitro Bass Boat. Bass boats live a hard life, trailered constantly, slammed across wakes at high speed, and the older Nitros show the strain in ways that frustrate owners. The complaints that come up most are the small things that signal bigger ones: carpet coming unglued from the deck, glove box lids falling off, trim pieces and structural details that simply don't hold up. Individually, those sound minor. Together, they tell you about the assembly quality of a boat being pushed to 40, 50, 60 miles an hour. When the cosmetic pieces are letting go, it raises the obvious question about the structure underneath that you can't see. For a high-speed fishing platform, where a hull failure is genuinely dangerous, that's not a gamble most anglers should take with an aging example. But the next one is on an entirely different level. Number 7. The Bayliner Trophy with Force Power. Coming in at number 7 is the Bayliner Trophy, but specifically the versions still carrying that cursed force engine. The trophy itself is actually a decent center console fishing hull, and that's what makes this one heartbreaking. Plenty of owners enjoy zipping around the bay and doing a little inshore fishing in one, but experienced offshore guys will tell you they rarely see a trophy 10, 15, 20 miles out, and there's a reason for that. The combination of a lighter-built hull and an unreliable motor is the last thing you want when the weather turns and you're a long way from the ramp. If you find a trophy that's been repowered with a modern outboard and properly maintained, it can be a genuine bargain. But the original engine examples are exactly the boats that earn this brand its reputation. Buy the motor, not just the boat. Just when it feels like you've seen it all, this appears. Number 6. The generic 1980s wood stringer runabout. At number 6, we have an entire category rather than a single name, the wood stringer runabouts of the late 1980s. This was the era when builders across the industry, Bayliner among the worst offenders, produced enormous volumes of boats with a wooden internal structure wrapped in fiberglass. Many were then shrink-wrapped and stored for long stretches in non-ventilated covers, and the wood floor under the fiberglass literally began to rot before the boat was ever sold. Pair that with cut corners like non-stainless staples in the upholstery, fasteners that rusted and rotted in short order, and you have a boat that was deteriorating from day one. The marine surveyor's trick for these is simple: tap the transom with a mallet and listen. A solid sound is good. A dull thud means aught. If you're shopping any runabout from this era, that mallet test isn't optional. It's the difference between a weekend toy and a winter-long rebuild. And now we reach a turning point in the list. Number 5. The Tahoe entry-level runabout. Number 5 is the Tahoe, another name that boaters bracket right down at the bottom of the quality ladder alongside the cheapest Bayliners. Tahoe's whole appeal is the sticker price. These are aggressively affordable family runabouts sold through big box outlets, and that affordability comes straight out of the materials and the finish. The pattern is familiar by now: lower grade hardware, thinner everything, and a boat built to hit a number rather than last a generation. The problem isn't that a brand new Tahoe falls apart immediately. It's that it depreciates fast. The components wear quickly, and within a few seasons, you're putting money into a boat that's already worth a fraction of what you paid. For a buyer who only hits the lake a handful of times a year, the math gets ugly quickly. You're paying premium ownership costs on a budget hull. But the next example is where things really start to shift. Number 4. The older Bayliner motor yacht and Meridian. Number 4 is the larger Bayliner motor yacht, the kind of boat that got so beaten up reputationally that Brunswick eventually rebranded the whole line as Meridian back in 2003 just to escape the name. These bigger Bayliners were saddled with underpowered, outdated diesel combinations, in part because the parent company deliberately reserved its best engines for the higher-end Sea Ray line and gave Bayliner the leftovers. The result was a generation of cruisers that were chronically underpowered, boats that struggled to get out of their own way and put extra strain on motors that were already the weak link. Add in the complexity and cost of maintaining a large twin-engine cruiser, and you've got a vessel that's expensive to run, slow to move, and difficult to sell. When a manufacturer changes the name on a product line specifically to outrun its reputation, that tells you everything you need to know about the boats that came before it. If you think that was strong, this next one goes even further. Number 3. The neglected project boat cruiser. We're now down to the bottom 3, and at number 3 isn't a specific brand at all. It's the single most dangerous purchase on this list, a neglected cruiser being sold as is with no professional marine survey. These boats are often advertised at unbelievably low prices that seem impossible to ignore, but the real problems are usually hidden beneath decks, behind panels, and below the waterline where you can't spot them during a quick inspection. A cruiser is far more complex than a small fishing boat, with dozens of critical systems that all have to work together safely. Bilge pumps, fuel lines, through hull fittings, steering components, electrical wiring, plumbing, and the hull to deck joint can all develop serious issues that remain completely invisible while the boat is tied to the dock. One of the biggest warning signs experienced buyers check is the electrical panel. If you remove the cover and find mismatched fuses, oversized replacements, corroded wiring, or even worse, someone has stuffed aluminum foil or other makeshift materials where a fuse belongs, walk away immediately. That's usually evidence of years of electrical problems being patched instead of properly repaired. Boats with that kind of maintenance history often hide countless other shortcuts throughout the vessel. The money you think you're saving on the purchase price can quickly disappear into repairs that cost many times more than the initial discount. A professional marine survey may cost a few $100s, but it can save you tens of thousands by uncovering structural damage, water intrusion, engine problems, and unsafe repairs before you hand over your money. The smartest rule in boat buying is also the simplest. No survey, no sale. Ignore it, and that bargain cruiser could become the most expensive mistake you'll ever dock. And then there is this one. Number 2, the older Sea Ray with wet foam hull. Our runner-up at number 2 is the older Sea Ray cruiser with a compromised water-saturated hull. Yes, the premium brand makes the bottom of the list twice, and this is the more expensive way it bites you. When fiberglass develops cracks in the deck and an owner tries to seal them with nothing but resin, water leaks straight through and saturates the foam built into the hull. The boat slowly takes on hundreds of pounds of dead weight it can't drain, riding lower and lower until those scuppers sit at the waterline. Because it's a Sea Ray, buyers assume quality and skip the close inspection, and that assumption is exactly what makes this so costly. Repairing a saturated foam core hull means cutting the boat open. It's one of the most expensive repairs in all of boating, frequently exceeding the value of the boat itself. A great brand can't save a hull that's been drinking water for a decade, and this next one explains everything. Number 1, the force-powered boat with a failing cooling system. Taking the number 1 spot, and this is the one that can actually leave you stranded, Is any boat still running an aging force or similarly neglected marine engine with a compromised cooling system? Here's what most first-time buyers don't understand. Unlike your car, a boat engine cools itself using the very water it's floating in, drawing it in through an impeller and circulating it to carry heat away. When seaweed, mud, or debris clogs that system, or when a worn impeller finally gives up, the engine overheats fast, and if you don't catch it, you're looking at catastrophic, sometimes dangerous, engine damage. Mechanics rank this among the most common ways boaters get towed back to the dock. An engine that suddenly dies, strange vibrations that worsen with speed, and overheat light miles from shore. Pair that fragile cooling system with the already unreliable force motor and its scarce parts, and you have the single worst combination on the water. A boat that's cheap to buy, brutal to fix, and capable of leaving you adrift exactly when you need it most. The marine rule of thumb is sobering. The average gas marine engine needs a major overhaul around 1,500 hours, and a neglected one won't make it close. This is the boat that turns a sunny afternoon into a rescue call. Found this helpful? Subscribe and join us for another deep dive soon.